This is Pan American Flight 914, flying from New York to Miami. Have you ever seen a plane take off and then suddenly disappear in midair? No signal, no malfunction, no warning. Just gone in an instant, as if it vanished into the sky. And then suddenly returns 37 years later. Is that even possible? This is not an ordinary incident, but a mystery that shocked the entire world. We are talking about Pan American Flight 914, which departed in 1955 from New York to Miami, but never reached its destination. It was morning at LaGuardia Airport in New York City. There was a lot of activity. Passengers were boarding, some holding their tickets, while others were eager to get on the flight as quickly as possible. There were a total of 57 passengers and 4 crew members on board, and everything was completely normal. The aircraft was being flown by Captain Miguel Victor, who was seated and checking everything carefully. It was a short and routine flight with a destination of Miami, expected to arrive in just 3 hours. The weather was clear, there were no issues, and everything was under control. At exactly 9:05, the flight took off, and within a few minutes, it had left behind the tall buildings of New York and reached over the Atlantic Ocean. The passengers looked relaxed. Some were looking out the window, some were reading newspapers, and others were chatting excitedly about reaching Miami. But no one knew that in the next few minutes, their lives were about to change forever. At 10:01 a.m., New York Air Traffic Control tracked Flight 914 and reported that the aircraft was perfectly on course. Everything was normal, but at 10:15, something strange suddenly happened. There was a sudden glitch on the radar screen, and Flight 914 disappeared. In the blink of an eye, there was no trace of the aircraft left. Air traffic control officers were shocked. They immediately tried to contact the plane. Flight 914, can you hear us? But there was no response. Flight 914, please respond. But there was only silence. Panic spread inside New York Air Traffic Control. The officials thought it might be a technical glitch, but when they tracked all the other flights, everything was normal. Only Flight 914 had seemingly vanished into thin air. Miami Air Traffic Control was immediately informed and told that Flight 914 had suddenly disappeared from radar. By now, the aircraft should have reached its destination, but it never arrived. A search operation was launched immediately. Naval ships began searching the ocean for any wreckage. Other airlines were contacted, and pilots were asked if they had seen anything unusual in the sky, but no clues were found anywhere. After 24 hours, when nothing was discovered, Pan American Airlines released a statement. Flight 914, carrying 61 people, has mysteriously disappeared. We have searched everywhere possible, but no wreckage has been found. We regret to assume that it has crashed. But did it really crash? Or was the aircraft trapped in a completely different time and place? This question was on everyone's mind, but no one had an answer. And then, 37 years later, in 1992, a shocking mystery surfaced that shook the entire world. The missing Flight 914 from 1955 had, by now, become a forgotten story. It was assumed to be a tragic accident. The passengers had been declared dead, and no one talked about this flight anymore. But 37 years later, an incident occurred that shocked the entire world. On September 21st, 1992, something happened at the Caracas airport in Venezuela that left everyone present there stunned. The air traffic control tower at Caracas airport was busy as usual. Every flight was being monitored and everything was normal. Suddenly, an unknown aircraft signal appeared on the radar screen. The officer on duty, Juan de la Cota, noticed that the plane was approaching Caracas, but there was no official information about it. He immediately called his colleagues. What aircraft is this? There are no flight details. An investigation began, and as soon as the aircraft model was identified, shock and fear spread across everyone's faces. It was not a modern jet. It was a Douglas DC-3 aircraft from the 1950s. Panic spread in air traffic control. The control tower immediately contacted the aircraft. Unidentified aircraft, please identify yourself. For a few seconds, there was no response. Everyone in the control tower was tense. Then, a broken voice came over the radio. This is Pan American Flight 914, flying from New York to Miami. Where are we? Hearing this, no one could believe it. The officers were stunned. Pan Am 914, but it had disappeared in 1955. How was this possible? The control tower immediately gave the aircraft permission to land. The runway was clear and all eyes were fixed on the sky. Within a few minutes, the plane appeared, an old design painted in the 1950s style, exactly as it had been 37 years ago. The aircraft slowly landed, and as its wheels touched the runway, the airport staff was shocked. Its engines were from an older era, and even the windows and doors looked like they were from 1955. Everything seemed frozen in time. But what was inside the aircraft was even more shocking. When the airport staff looked through the windows, they saw frightened passengers. Some had worried expressions, and others seemed confused about what was happening. People were nervously asking each other questions, as if it was still 1955 for them. The officers asked the captain, Miguel Vistor, to open the door. But as soon as the captain looked outside, he was shocked. He saw modern vehicles on the runway, and the airport looked completely different. He panicked and shouted, This is wrong. We shouldn't be here." The captain quickly stood up from his seat, his hands trembling. Suddenly, something fell from his hand. The airport staff looked closely. It was an old calendar from 1955. Everyone was horrified. 37 years had passed, but the captain still had a 1955 calendar. How was this possible? The date on the calendar was July 2nd, 1955, the same day the flight had disappeared. It felt as if time had never moved forward for them. The officers tried to calm the captain, but he was extremely scared and panicked. He told his crew, "We need to get out of here immediately." No one could understand what was happening. Suddenly, the captain started the engines again. Then something happened that would never be forgotten. The airport staff tried to stop the aircraft, but the captain ignored everyone. The plane accelerated on the runway and within seconds, took off into the sky again. The control tower tried to track it on radar, but after just a few seconds, the aircraft disappeared once again. Where did it go this time? Was it a tear in time? Did the aircraft enter another dimension? This incident feels like something out of a science fiction movie. Some people believe it is completely true, while others consider it a fictional story. The mystery of Flight 914 has been astonishing people for decades, and many stories and alleged witnesses support it. But is there any solid evidence? According to some reports, this story first appeared in the 1980s when an American tabloid newspaper published it. It is said that the story was completely fabricated and has no official record. Many experts have claimed that Flight 914 never even existed, and no such incident was ever recorded at Caracas Airport. So where did this story come from? Was it just a made-up rumor that became more mysterious over time? Or is the real truth hidden somewhere in secret files? No one knows the truth, but one thing is certain: the mystery of Flight 914 continues to amaze people even today, and it probably always will. So now you tell us, do you think this story is real or just a fictional rumor? Share your thoughts in the comments. Friends, thank you for watching this video till the end.